My book is tentatively titled At the Top of the Wall, A Light, but I don't think that's going to be its final title. Regardless, it's a historical novel set in 20th century Vienna, spans a few decades from the early 20th century to the mid-20th century, and it deals mainly with a Jewish graveyard keeper in Vienna who falls in love with the cemeteries, which are largely neglected in the context of this story, is forced to flee Vienna during the Anschluss and comes back afterwards to a very transformed city. And it's about his love with his wife, it's about his family, it's about his very complicated relationships with some of his friends from before the war. And hopefully it's all communicated through kind of slightly experimental narration techniques that I think hopefully deal a little bit with the kind of confusion and trauma that he's experiencing. Oh, a lot of things. As a child, lived in Vienna, in Austria, and one of the cemeteries that's at the heart of the story was very near to our home when we lived there. And I had memories of just seeing bits of the cemetery when one of my parents would hold me up and look at it. And it was very ruined and very neglected. And my understanding of what exactly had happened in that cemetery and why it was so neglected was kind of bound up with my very early understanding of what had happened in the 20th century in Europe and what had happened in the Holocaust. And I was in my mind as a child, I think, kind of conflating those two things, this very neglected cemetery and this whole history of Austria's role in the war, all of these different things. And so when I was an adult and remembering these things, it started to come together kind of thematically as a potential narrative and as a potential story. And I guess along with all of those other little things that come together to form a plot for a story and form characters, it just ended up being something that was quite resonant for me. I worked with Ria Tregobov, who was absolutely the perfect supervisor for it. She had great insight into it, I think, both artistically in terms of the language that I was using and the approach I was taking, but also into the subject matter. She has a lot of familiarity with topics dealing with Holocaust survivor stories and all of these kinds of things. So I felt very comfortable letting her be the first reader, kind of the judge of whether I was doing the subject matter justice. I don't think I would have had the guts to do it without her telling me I was doing it in a way that was reasonable and appropriate. Absolutely, yeah. No, that was an amazing experience. It was fantastic just to be shortlisted last year. It was awesome to know that going forward, when I submitted it to other agents or other publishers, I would be able to say it was shortlisted for this. But I think what was incredibly valuable was getting to have a conversation with one of the editors at HarperCollins about the novel. I think at that point I knew that it would have to be revised, but she had some very specific concerns about it, and as soon as she stated them to me, I understood that they had to happen. I mean, they were things that perhaps I was imagining I could get away with fixing later, and as soon as I heard from her that that's sort of why they didn't see it as immediately publishable, I thought, okay, no, I have to deal with this right away, and just because I think it was a project that I cared so much about and I was not going to give up on. I saw this as an opportunity to take the revision process really seriously for, say, 6 months or a year, start sending it out again. And because I'd been in touch with the Cook Agency and HarperCollins, my first thought was to send it back and let them see it again, basically, because they had stated that they were interested. And then thankfully, they chose it for the prize again, and that was really wonderful. Gosh, for me, there were a number of things that were very useful. I mean, the workshops themselves, working with such talented writers, both the faculty and the other students, was incredibly helpful. I feel like it helped me understand story better. It helped me understand what makes a story work beyond just excellent writing. How plot works, how character development works. As well, I think just because the UBC Creative Writing Department is so well connected in the literary community, I now feel as if I am kind of part of the Canadian literary community. even though I'm kind of just entering it. I left UBC with a feeling that I had a lot of people I could get in touch with if I needed to for advice or for referrals or anything, and that's just an amazing feeling. I think that's something that's very hard to get if you try to just make it on your own. And while I'm sure that's absolutely the right choice for some writers, I was certainly very grateful that I had that experience at UBC.